Welcome back, CSC 121, Fall 2020, to Part 4 of our test score exercise. It's actually Exercise 4, Assignment 4 for this semester, and we're kind of doing it in multiple parts, so we build up some different things to it. I'd rather do that rather than keep deleting stuff and starting over, so we're making different files here. Right off the bat, in this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a save as. Now make sure you saved your previous one of 4C, and we called it 4C. You remember what the C was for? It was for the counter. Now for this one, I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to call it, I guess I'll call it 5C. I'll call it 5CC because we're doing a number of counters. I don't know if that's going to be more confusing or not, but I'll put in 5CC just so it's not 4C. And if you called it 5C, it wouldn't matter. As long as I know what file it is, as long as you have 4 files that have 4 test score, that's fine. I probably should have just matched them up with the video parts, but anyway, I'll call it 5CC because we'll have multiple counters in this one. So let me save this. So now this is called 5CC. And the video is part 4, but the file is 5CC, and the exercise is 4. So hopefully that's not confusing. But anyway, this is the last part of this, so instead of continuing on right now, we will do other stuff, loops and all that with this. But for now, what we'll do is we'll add some more counters. So we have counter to identify this. Let's add another counter here. All our possible points and our EP points, what we're going to do, instead of totaling them here, we're going to total them as we count. So we're going to count them so we don't have to do this thing down here. Because remember, if we added another test, we'd have to keep adding to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this pp4, and it's going to start at 0 because there's nothing there yet. And then I could just copy this from down here, and that's going to start at 0. And I'll put counter to tally points. So they're going to add up the points. They're not going to be the points that we input, they're going to tally the points. So because we're tallying the points, these don't need to be separate variables. They're just going to still input what we normally input. So I'm just going to go back and make them the original PP and EPs. And the reason I'm doing that also is because eventually we're going to put this in a loop, and it'll just be one time we'll do it and it'll just keep repeating. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're repeating it, except we're counting things. We're not doing it within a loop, but we're going to just kind of keep counting. So I don't need separate variables here, and we're not going to tally them up like this. Matter of fact, let me wipe this out because I don't think we're going to need this. So I'm going to wipe this out. We already have the EP tote here and the PP tote here, so I don't think we have to add them up. We're going to add them up as we go, so we don't need these. We don't need to add these up anymore. So I'm getting rid of that. But we need to add them up here, and we needed to add them up down here too. So what we're going to do down here after every one, I'm going to copy this and do the same thing. I'm going to put in PP tote. We're basically going to say the PP total is going to equal the total plus whatever this is. So we're going to keep adding this to the total. So we're going to say the total equals whatever they put in here. So if someone enters something, it's going to add to the total. So if it starts off with 0, they're going to add, PP total is going to basically equal PP tote, which is 0, plus PP. Now, you can use a shortcut and say plus equals PP. And that means itself plus PP. Maybe I'll just leave it like this for now. But you can shorten this so you don't have to write PP tote twice. If you say plus equals, it means add this to itself. But you can see we're still adding this to itself. So whatever this is going to start off at 0, and then it's going to say 0 plus 50 if we put in 50. And this will be the same thing. This will be, let's say we got 35 out of 50. This will be 0 equals 0 plus 35. And now EP tote is now going to be 35. So when it moves on to the next one, it's going to be 35 plus whatever the next one is. So it's going to keep adding. It's going to hold that value and then keep adding to itself each time. I could just copy this and put it here and put it here and put it here. Now I'm not putting the test thing at the end because I'll just use the same test thing because that's going to be 4. And that's going to be 4. So I think I'm okay. If we have the number of tests here, that works fine because we don't have to divide anything by the number of tests or anything like that. We're just putting the number of tests. If we had we'd have to count up the number of tests if we were using it in math, but we're not using it in math. We're just identifying and saying, hey, we had 5 tests because we're just adding up all the points and dividing all the points. We're doing it kind of collectively. So again, what's happening here is test is starting with test 1, then it's going to add to itself and make this test 2, and add to itself and make that test 3, and add to itself and make that test 4, but it's not going to add to itself at the end, because once it's 4, it's just going to put 4 in here. So these totals are going to start at 0, and then they're basically going to add themselves to the new value, and then themselves to the new value, and then the new value is going to be carried to the next one and added to that. So they'll keep adding up till they make a giant total at the end, and we already have something that's dividing the totals, multiplying by 100 and rounding. So we already have that in place. All we're doing is using counters so that we don't have to keep updating all these different variables here, and we don't have to do that thing that has plus, plus, plus. We're just incrementing itself. So that's all we're doing here, and let's see if this works. This should be fine. And notice this thing, we don't have to change this. And again, the importance of what we're doing here, the importance of not having a pp1 and then a pp2 and so on, and the importance of just having these that increment themselves, is you could take this block, because look, this block is exactly like that block, which is exactly like that block. Eventually, when we do something called a loop, we could just say, hey, repeat this block 4 times, repeat this block 10 times, repeat this block 100 times, repeat this block until we want it to end. And that's what's kind of more efficient, the fact that we're not renaming things, we're not adding up. It's all very self-efficient. You could have as many of these as you want. I could keep copying and pasting these on, and we don't have to change anything other than making sure test doesn't go after the last one. You know, we could put 5 or 6 here, and we can even try that. Maybe I call this 5, maybe we'll put 1 more here. But let's see if this works first. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to run it. And let's start off. I'm going to do every one as 40 out of 50. Make sure you click here and do 50 and 40 and then 50 and then 40, 50, 40, 50, 40. And I thought I that keeps popping up there. I thought I fixed that. This test. Oh, I put the space in the wrong place here. I put it here, and it should be between there. So I still, for some reason, I keep messing that up, but I'll have to fix that. So that's the 4th one. When I hit enter, I get an 80, which makes sense, on 4 tests. Now, that works. Now, let me fix this. I'll put the space after this. And now, if I wanted to do 1 more, all I'd have to do... See, this is where it starts to get efficient. I know it still seems kind of like, wow, this is getting confusing here, but if I copy this one, and I'm copying this one because it has the test incrementer in here, and I want to keep the one without the test incrementer at the end. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to go 2 spaces and paste it. So now I have 5 tests, and I'll get rid of the extra space. So now I have 5. Now that I have 5, I don't have to change anything. I should save it, and I'm going to do the same thing, 50, 40, 50, 40, 50, 40, 50, 40, and I finally got that one right. That finally looks right. And then it's going to go 50, 40. And now I got that. I still got it wrong. I still can't get that last one. I keep messing up for some reason. Wait a minute here. Some of these are together. Some of these, I got to go look at them again. Now I have a space between these, and I don't have a space there. I didn't want a space between 3 and 4, so I have to fix those. So that one's actually okay. Now, but anyway, the important thing is, if I hit enter, I received an 80% on 5 tests. I made this scalable. You hear that term, oh, it's scalable. Now, again, we're working on test scores. This isn't Google algorithm or anything like that, but what we're doing is we're being scalable. We're using variables here that are getting reused. Now, we're still copying and pasting, and that's not very efficient, but we're doing things that if we don't have to copy and paste them, we could put these in a loop, and we're not changing variable names. The fact that we're not changing variable names is very important for when we start doing loops, because it's just taking one variable name and putting it together at the end. Now, we copied 1 and we made it 5. We could have copied 10 more and put them in there, and it'll do 10 tests. And then we'll also do conditional statements so that we can determine what kind of grade we have down there, so we can output a grade as well based on the numbers. So there's a lot of things we can add into here and improve on this, and that's part of what we'll do with Python, is learning to be more efficient as we work with our code, start using these tools to be more efficient. Not just, hey, here's a loop, here's a condition statement, this is how it works, but to take something that we worked on and say, hey, how can we make this better? And that's what's kind of powerful about working with Python, about programming, about problem solving. It's about taking these things and making them better. That's where your brain will start to think a little bit better, and you'll start to make better decisions and be more efficient, and you'll be more of a programmer by doing that. You can always learn the language and learn how to do things and look things up, but learning how to do things more efficient, that's a nice skill. So that's what we're going to try to work on through some of these. So when you're done with this, make sure you save it, and then also make sure you go into your assignment in coursework under for test scores. I think that'll be under Unit 3, where you can just go in and say, I'm done with it, and also put your username in Python anywhere. That helps. It helps me find it, or at least get used to your username a little bit better. That's been really helpful doing it so far, and it's been really easy to go in and see your assignment. So that's what you're going to do for this one. For test scores, you're going to have 4 files that I'm going to look at for this exercise, so it'll be a little bit bigger, but hopefully we could keep building on some of these concepts that we learned in here.